The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
It's the West Tigers podcast, and we're up to episode number 426. I noticed that Eddie's still counting, so I thought I'll get in the spirit of that. I'll look up the number, and there you go, 426. And a little bit different for a bye round because we've got Zach Kelsey here, Zach from the Tiger Town podcast, and Nick is here as well. And although the West Tigers didn't play, there's still plenty to talk about. So we're just doing it a little bit different. Hello, Zach. Welcome to the West Tigers podcast.
Thanks, Joel. Mate, great to be here. Long-time listener, first-time contributor, as they say. But no, mate, really good. And as I'd mentioned a little earlier, we had a little get-together around West Tigers Unite earlier in the year, and thrilled to be back.
Yeah, well, it's nearly a year ago since we were doing all that stuff with West Tigers Unite. It was over the off-season last season. I'm sort of hoping, or maybe, I'm hopeful that we don't have to go there again. But it certainly made for an interesting off-season. So we're looking forward to continuing to talk West Tigers right throughout the off-season. Nick, normally we catch up post-game, but the bye this round. How's your weekend been? We could go traditional and say, what's one word for the bye round?
Oh, one word. You know what? I don't know if I can think of one word. The weekend has been amazing. As you know, I'm a bit like Eddie. Probably a bit of a sadist, especially I guess considering how Gary loves his weekends when the Tigers are playing. But I actually prefer the weekends when we're not playing because it's just extremely stress-free. So. Just been able to enjoy my weekend, Joel. Watch a little bit of NRL, do a few other things. Don't have to worry about the anxiety around that 80 minutes when we play. So it's been good.
Peaceful is the word that I'm hearing out of all of that, Nick.
Yeah, maybe Zen, something like that.
Zen. Yeah.
The guaranteed 2 points helps, I'm sure.
I wish we could have 27 buys, Zach.
Yeah, that'd be good. Every second, just for us, though, that'd be good.
Just for us.
Zach, you're up in southeast Queensland, is that correct?
Yeah, just based down the north side of Brisbane, mate. I've been up here going on 12, 13 years now, and originally Coffs Harbour, born and bred. Actually born in Sydney for a couple of years and then up to Coffs Harbour, mid-north coast there. So found our way up in Brisbane, but hasn't swayed any of my allegiances, nor should it. Still bleed blue and cop it left, right and centre at origin time. And obviously not too... Look, there's West Tigers fans everywhere, but I'm in a sea of Dolphins and Broncos up here, mate.
Yeah. Well, I had about 5 or 6 years up there as a West Tigers fan from about 2004 to 2009, somewhere around those sort of numbers. So I remember what it was like to be a West Tigers fan in Brisbane. But you do see, getting a little bit off track, but you do see a surprising number of West Tigers fans getting around in Brisbane. Is that something that you've experienced?
We're everywhere. Everywhere. I reckon I could fly into Abu Dhabi and find West Tigers fans, fair dinkum. And considering how and where we've been, I guess, for the last decade and a half, it just goes to show. I think many of us have mentioned, and I think a lot of people suspect, the moment that we start to finally catch a little bit of fire, you wait till you see them come out of the woodwork. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, exactly. How did you come to be a West Tigers fan, Zach?
Yeah, so I was mentioning a little bit earlier that I wish I had some sort of elaborate story, dreaming of Wayne Pearce, breaking tackles at Leichhardt, or Laurie Nichols throwing left-right combinations on the hill as a youngster. But no, basically, I grew up in a family of Parramatta fans. So blue and gold galore. My old man was rabid, still is to this day. And one day I just walked out with a little tiger stuffed toy and told him that I'm going to be the orange and black sheep of the family. And that was it. Haven't wavered since, and it still hurts him.
What do you think? Was that the right decision to make in hindsight? Are any regrets?
Tell you what, it's debatable. It's debatable. A couple of grand final appearances for them, many, many, many more finals than us. But, one trophy's got to trump 0 trophies, and I remind him of that every day of his life.
Mm.
Jack, when you walked out with that little toy tiger, was that the moment you got evicted from Coffs Harbour up to South East Queensland on your own?
Yeah, it was, Nick. Yeah, those were rough times, but even in spite of all that and my football side being generally woeful, still made the right call, my friend, I think. So,
You did, mate. Well done.
Leads me into a good sort of question about as a fan, and we're all fans here, and Nick, I'd like to sort of hear your take on this as well. What over the years, some highs and lows of being, what's the experience been like? The lows seem to be low, and the highs seem to be a bit of a memory. But what are some things that come to mind, having been a Tigers fan for the amount of time that you've been? What are some of the experiences?
Oh, look, for me, we're all fairly pretty much in the same boat. I'm probably a little bit older. I'm on the higher side of my 40s. So I've been around since those Balmain Tiger days as well. And, as I've mentioned before, I've had a little bit of history with the Magpies in 2008 as a trainer. I was lucky enough to be a trainer in the New South Wales Cup for a season. So I did feel like I grew a little bit of a allegiance to the Magpies during that year. So I've got a bit of history with both sides of the original foundation clubs. But as we all know, we haven't had a lot of success from either side of the merger. And, I guess specifically speaking about West Tigers, it's been a pretty tough 25 years. Where do you start? I mean, out of the blocks, I guess we came out with a side that was really thrown together from some pretty high profile signings from other clubs. We had some pretty big names like Jared McCracken and Terry Hill come across. And for that first half of that 2000 season, we looked pretty competitive. I think we were up in the top eight for a lot of that. I actually think we're running second for almost half the season before we sort of fell away a bit. But, it took a little bit of time to get some success. And I guess we got that pretty quickly in 2005, which came out of nowhere. Then we fell away again. So just the highs and lows of being a West Tigers fan for the last 25 years has been pretty tough. We had that purple patch 2010 and 11 where we really did look like a top four team that probably
Yeah.
deserved to win a comp that we didn't. So that was one that got away. And then since 2011, we've fallen into a heap. And the last 13, 14 seasons now has just been an absolute spiral. And I think we're just starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm hoping, really, really hoping that next year we climb out of that rut and can get it back into playing finals football, at least contending, like seriously contending for a top eight spot. It's been hard, Joel, as we all know.
Mm. Yeah. Zach, what about for you? When you think about, obviously, for me, like '05 was incredible, and we always talk about it. It gets a little bit boring, really, to keep talking about it because it's so long ago. Like if you think about it in Balmain terms, when people used to talk about the 1969 grand final, and back in the early '90s, and that it's the same, and that would seem like a different lifetime ago for a young kid that I was in those days. But the highlights for me, I think, were those, as Nick said, those 2010, 2011 teams. You had that confidence each week that we were going to put in a good performance. So even '05, it always felt like I was braced for the wheels to fall off. But those years were different. And they're the only 2 years that we've had of any real sustained success, or maybe that's not even the right term, but that feeling of confidence.
yeah, I think that the concept of highs and lows is just woven into the fabric of this side, this club, I should say. And it's from every element as you boys are talking about over the course of the years and how the years undulate, all the way down to intra game and all the way down to probably our best player in Benji Marshall. And Benji Marshall
Yeah.
is nothing else if not highs and lows.
Mm.
So, the side, we're almost some black and white, black and orange, very contrasting colours. So, I guess you could view us as a bit of a bipolar football club in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, and
Mhm.
it would be hard to argue otherwise. Not to make that comparison lightly, of course, but look, I think you boys have mentioned the good ones. The big lows for me that don't often get mentioned are losing some of our real cracking players over the years. And when I say they don't often get mentioned, oh boy, how do they get mentioned in the media? I mean, I think when people reflect upon low points in the club's histories, it's very easy to gloss over an individual or two. But the likes of losing Tedesco, you can look in retrospect at the Fafitas of the world, and we've got a list a mile long. I think of those things because of what could have been, or beans, I should say. I watched Mitchell Moses steer Parramatta home tonight off his own back, and he's still of playing age, and we all know where he came from and what could have been there, and there's a lot of those types of examples. So, yeah, we could wax lyrical for a long time about moments and years and particular games, but for me, the juniors that we've lost is something worth mentioning for sure, on the
Hmm.
low end for sure.
Hmm. No, no, that resonates with me because one of the big parts about following the club is seeing the youngsters come through.
Yeah.
Because you do see them in a different way to the guys that you buy. And then to lose them and to see them go on and have success elsewhere, it's a bitter pill to swallow, given how many times we've had to do it. Every club has to do it. Penrith did it with Fittler, and you could name however many, but for us, we've had, almost like generations of players disappear. And although we had an incident this year with one particular player and we let another one go, hopefully that's those days are over. I would say if we are, bipolar or we are like polar opposite sort of organization, that hopefully that means that we're going to swing around and have 10 years of great success because, the pendulum's going to swing the other way. We all hope, but hey, what do the 2030s look like? Like, it's not that far away. We might be sitting here in 10 years' time going, what did we even worry about? Like, everything came together. I'm
The
being
only
very
thing,
optimistic, Nick.
the only thing that worries me about that, Joel, is whether I'll be alive long enough to enjoy the success.
If Benji keeps going the way he's going, at least in the last week or so, you might have AI assistant coaches,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe to sort out that attack clunkiness, but we'll see.
That's right. That might be something that we need to do at Concord is feed the data into the AI and see what it comes up with.
Absolutely.
Um, it's another, how many years has the West Tigers taken off your life? That's another debate.
Mm,
A
yeah.
lot, look at me, but I'm only 22. Um, the re-signing of Adam Dewey, Zach. Dewey gets talked about every week on our pod. He just seems to be the topic of conversation, whether it
Mm.
be highs or lows or in betweens. But what's your take on a couple of years for Adam Dewey?
I think it was essential in the end, for a number of reasons: leadership, goal kicking, versatility, experience. He's a big moment player. My only concern, and I say this is the caveat with agreeing with the re-signing. The caveat for me is it's a contract season, and he was playing for a contract. And Adam Dewey is nothing if not, in the past at least, inconsistent. But to give him his due course, I would argue he's probably had his best season in our colours. He's done it in a variety of positions, and he has come up clutch in a variety of situations and won us games directly. So, I mean, the other side of the coin, without going on too much of a monologue, is he has kind of played himself into a pseudo caretaker role around the Latu lock halfback situation. So
Mhm.
I think it behooves us to have signed him for that period of time. And yeah, I'm really happy that it's sort of come through, and I think there's a bit of clarity around that now, and we can look forward to what that might look like with the preseason under our belt at the start of 2026.
Zach, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's probably AD's best season this year, and I'll probably say it's probably his best second half of the season where he stood out. And he's a real interesting one to talk about, isn't he? Because I still don't know if he's locked down a position. And you said it, like whether he's going to be halfback, whether he's going to be lock. I don't know where you start him. And we spent the majority of the season playing him in the centres this year. And he's always been able to do a job without being overly dynamic in the centres. And I think we really saw last week against the Bulldogs. Benji made that switch before the game to put him into the halves, which I think was actually a masterstroke because AD is our best general play kicker in the team. He's got the biggest boot on him, and in those wet, muddy conditions against the Dogs last week, he was going to be the correct person to be able to kick the ball down as far as possible without getting any bounce or run on that ball. So you're going to get a bit more field position playing off the back of his kicks. So for me, you've got to really play him either in the middle next year at lock, where he can still be involved, and especially in that general play kicking area, or, or potentially you need to look at him as maybe playing seven. Now, I don't want to pick him at seven yet because he had one good game against the Dogs. I want to see him back that up.
Hmm.
And I think we've spoken about with Dewey in the past as his consistency. I think he's definitely lifted his game. I feel like he's really gone to another level this year based on the addition of Jerome Luai and his attitude that he's brought from Penrith. I can see an attitude improvement in AD the way that he plays, not just attacking wise, but his defense has gone up an absolute mile this year.
Hmm.
So hopefully he can maintain that level and build on it. Yeah, where he plays, I don't even know if Benji knows where his best position is yet for next year, but I agree with you. Pivotal re-signing, so I'm really glad that he's sticking around. And he is a Tiger, like he loves the
Hmm.
club. He's basically turned down an extra 100K a year to stay with us over that Dragons offer. So yeah, I'm happy he's staying.
He probably just on that point Zach made, like he's won us two games this year, which can't be understated. When we're in the position that we're in, that's the difference between maybe 6 and 8, which is huge given our last year. Um, I guess the couple of points that come to mind for me is that by re-signing him as well, it might only be a minor point, but we haven't strengthened the Dragons. You know, they're one of our big rivals for maybe a seventh or eighth spot next year. So I think there's a positive there. Definitely goal kicking. Without Dewey, our goal kicking is probably a massive issue. But yeah, still question marks over where to play him next year. But one thing that I think Eddie and the boys were talking on there, the last pod that they did, was that he's only played about 80 games, Zach. And theoretically, like if you looked at this on paper, and I know it's not played on paper, but here's a guy that has 26, 27 years, so coming into some really good years of leadership and experience and only played 80 games. Like there's that aspect of it that it seems a pretty good investment for 2 years. And although it would be nice to know what position he's in, there's also a luxury in having that flexibility. You could still throw him in the centres. At a pinch, if you got really desperate, you could put him at fullback. He'll do an okay job at fullback. So I could see the logic behind it. And I think I'm glad that it's played out this way, even though I'm not the biggest Adam Dewey fan. I think it's strengthened us more than if we'd lost him.
I agree, and I think it's a value-based contract.
Yeah.
If we have a look at what the average quote unquote contract would be across the league, if we're looking at a rough 12 odd million, I know it's high 11s, we're looking at around that 400 mark. So we've basically got him for at or slightly below what an average contract would be. And
Mm.
as you guys have just discussed, the value that he brings is not one dimensional. It's multi-dimensional, and he is a goal kicker, as you said. The other thing I want to mention as well is I think we've been the beneficiaries of in terms of the value of the fact that he is now a try ACL reconstruction athlete.
Yeah.
And so it is his last chance saloon. And you can see that in his application, which I think is one of the largest reasons for his inconsistencies in the past. And it's one of the things that have always been questioned. Not so much does he love the club, we've known that's there, but it's the aptitude on the field and the willingness to do those one percenters. And so I think all round, the contract not only presents a great decision in terms of where we are and what we need at the moment, whilst not answering all of our questions, but it presents good value as well for both parties. So everybody comes out a winner.
Yeah, exactly. On the West Tigers podcast forum, Mike does an excellent job of updating the West Tigers roster spreadsheet. And I was having a look at that. It's very interesting to look at. Certainly 2028, I think there's only three or four guys. There's a huge amount of roster spots available at the West Tigers in a couple of years, 17 spots in 2027, but we're at 27 for 2026. That includes Maverick Geyer, Madden, Pierce Paul, and also Sullivan is still listed in there. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with Jaden Sullivan. Um, any hope, Nick, or can you see, you've got Madden, Luai, Latufenu, Dewey. If everybody's fit and healthy and Sullivan does end up back here, do you see a spot for him other than New South Wales Cup or how that might play out?
And is it pronounced Javon Andrews? Is that his name? The
Yes,
young fella
exactly.
coming
Yes, the
down.
youngster.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's another half too. So
Mm.
it's a lot of pieces to fit into that halves puzzle. So I don't think Bud will come back. I have heard a rumor somewhere. I might have seen something floating around on X that Souths were trying to do what they could to retain him for next season. So, and from all reports, Bud's loved his time at the Rabbitohs this year. So,
Mm.
I would have to think that he'll probably stay at Souths.
I think the other
And
thing that points to that, sorry, Nick, to cut you off
yeah,
there, mate, is the fact that Dodd's on the outer.
God. Mm.
And
yeah,
they're shopping him. He's on big money, and obviously they're not getting, speaking of value out of him there. But if they're able to move Lewis on, then they're not going to do that if one of the other backup halfbacks is also going back to his pre-existing club. That's my assumption, and I think, like you say, I think that points to Bud, yeah, staying with the Rabbits.
Mm. You'd think Dodd maybe Super League because I can't
Yeah.
see any other NRL teams going his way.
Ah,
So that might open that up. So that would be nice. That would, if Sullivan wasn't in the picture, then that leaves 4 spots open, which is not a bad place to be,
Yeah.
given, Spine's pretty settled. A couple of question marks, obviously, as we are talking about. But I think that's an okay place to be at this stage. We'll talk a little bit about our optimistic points, reasons to be optimistic for 2026, and maybe some reasons to be a little bit pessimistic in a few moments' time. Charlie Staines he's off contract. Looks like he's off to the Super League. Your thoughts on Charlie Staines, Zach? I would say probably I wouldn't be surprised if you agree. He always tries hard,
yeah.
just not lacking, just lacking that physicality, for want of a better term, and not overly tall as well, which is a big factor a lot of wingers have nowadays.
Yeah, I think physically he's always pushing it up the hill, so to speak. But I've got to say, to be perfectly fair on Charlie, up until he had that shocker several weeks back, he has been terrific this year, particularly his first drop. Whenever he had come up, he was making big meters out of yardage at the backfield. He was pretty reliable in both attack and defence. But I think as we look into wing next year, there's a few decisions, and I know there's a lot of the youth there. But if we look at Tito and Giral as probably having the inside running there, we've got the likes of Hamasi, who's banging on the door, Luke Lealali'i, who is there or thereabouts. We've got Isaac Thompson and Naden, who are both unsigned for next year, as far as I know. But Naden's obviously been playing well enough to get a recent recall, and he did quite well against the Doggies. And Isaac Thompson's been going gangbusters in for the Magpies this year. So
Mm.
I think that in a lot of ways, I think if we had far less wing depth, then it might not be an issue. But I think people have sort of come in and cut in front of him in line, and so it's in his best interest to follow Solfa Tape over to France.
Yeah, they're going to play the same team over there. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, the choice between Thompson and Naden, Nick, I'd be keeping Thompson over Naden. After last week, and not just after last week, after a lot of stuff, I I want to like Brent Naden, but I'll just be relieved when he's not part of the organisation personally.
He's hard to trust, isn't he? Like,
Yeah.
I love Nathan at his best, but at his worst, he's in the sin bin. He's making terrible errors. His attitude can stink. But like I just said, on the flip side, he's he can be a real quality outside back. So he's a hard one. He's a bit of an enigma, but I'm not sure how old Nathan is. He's been around for a little while now.
Yeah, I think he must be about 28, I'd
Yeah, I was
suggest.
going to say
Yes.
27, 28.
Yeah.
So.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't mind what I've seen from Thompson either. So, yeah, I think we need, like Gary's always banging on too, we need those outside backs that can really bring the ball back with a bit of punch as well, especially off those kick returns. And touching on Charlie Staines, I'm the same, Zach. Like, I love Charlie. He's a bit in that Corey Thompson type mold as well, like that smaller
Mm.
winger that, with a lot of speed. But, they try their heart out for 80 minutes, but not with a great deal of, ability to break the line when they run the ball back. So I hope he can really find his feet over in the Super League. If is that guaranteed where he's heading? Is he actually locked into a contract over
I
there? Or
don't
is it
think it's
just
I don't think it's
just
confirmed, but yeah, I think with
Looks
these
like
types of
it.
second tier contracts, when you hear
yeah?
whispers about them, with respect to Charlie, they are that second tier player. So if you're hearing something, it's probably, yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire, is my assumption. I
And
think
he'd
with
kill it.
Charlie, I was just going to say with Charlie as well, I think he's the type of character that has gotten everything out of his ability. A very
Mm.
wholehearted player. He's kind of the anti Dave Taylor in a
Yeah.
lot of
Or
ways.
the anti-Brent Naden.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Better comparison, probably. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like Naden's got the size and he's got all of those attributes. And yeah, whereas
Mm.
you're right, if there's one thing that Charlie Stain could be really proud of is that he has squeezed whatever lemon juice he's got, he's squeezed it out of himself. He's done really well.
Absolutely.
Um, just wanted to get your opinion on Stafford Toa, Zach. You mentioned Macassini, Taylor May. We've got these options in the backs.
Mm.
How desperate are you to sign Stafford? I mean, he's shown some great glimpses, but
Mm.
also, there's other times where he sort of does go a little bit missing for me.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cop out, but I don't know, and the answer around that is, look, I'm probably leaning towards yes. It's going to depend upon. Sorry, I keep banging on about value, but what's the number on the contract,
Yeah.
and how many spaces do we have? It's a numbers game at the end of the day. I love what Stafford can do. I know.
Mm.
I think every Tigers fan loves what Stafford can do. And I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt because up until probably the last 4 to 6 weeks, I'd argue he's probably had a career best season in terms of consistency for us as well. But then, he started having issues with that elbow and it seemed to be quote unquote hamstringing him for a while.
Mm.
And I've got no doubt that has affected his performances, but he's dropped off a cliff defensively. And whether he was dropped or whether he's out because of that injury, um, I think that at least in terms of this year, yeah, he was due a break. So he's a funny one, mate.
Mm.
I wonder if a lot of that has to do with that injury that he suffered to his elbow or his wrist. I think it was his elbow. I
Yeah,
can't remember the game, but it was out wide fairly late in the game where he went down and he was down for a bit and he was carrying that arm for the rest of that game.
Yeah.
It probably was 4 to 6 weeks ago, but ever since then he's lost his potency in attack as well because he was
mm,
really hitting the line and fending off a lot of players with a lot of aggression, and that was really the side to Stafford that we hadn't really seen consistently, and he was putting it together for quite a while up until that moment. And I know that we carried, a sensor on the bench and on the extended bench a couple of times since that injury. And I know that when we beat the Titans at Leichhardt, we had Christian Papalangi on the bench, and he was purely there to cover Stafford in case he had a problem with that arm. So
yeah.
I think he has been carrying that, and I really do think that's had an impact on his performance, which is a real shame because I loved seeing that explosive and dynamic side to Stafford, and he was a real terror in attack,
Mm.
and really offering a lot of potency out wide, which we're now seeing with Taylor May. So silver linings, but yeah, love to see Stafford come back to his best at some point.
It's also a little bit hard to look in the crystal ball because you've got a guy that hasn't played first grade yet. I mean, he looks sensational against, in schoolboy comps and the lower grades, but he hasn't played in OL. And you've got a guy that had 18 months out because of off-field stuff and isn't even signed for next year as far as we're aware. Like there's
Mm.
definitely some question marks around centre. So maybe it would be better to lock up Stafford Tower just because he's more of a known and trustworthy commodity, perhaps. But yeah.
As far as I'm aware, Stafford is still contracted for 26.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
So he's off. Yeah, so he's off from November 1. And I
Yeah.
just want to double check. I think something that often gets missed by a lot of people is Stafford just turned 25.
Mm.
He's been around for a long
Been around
time,
for a long
but
time.
that's
Yeah.
still quite a young man. And he is getting better year on year. I think that his body has let him down, obviously, and we alluded to that with the elbow issue. But he's only a couple of minor tweaks away and a good run from injury away from really contending. Taylor, whether it's Taylor May, Hamasi Makasini, whoever's in those positions. And I think for right now, he's probably in our starting centers, um, in that other center alongside Taylor. So
Yeah.
look, yeah, it depends. If somebody swoops in and grabs him from November 1, it's tricky. I don't think we chase it. But if he remains unsigned into next year and we go 6, 12 rounds, we'll see where the chips fall.
Mm.
If he's a continued and heavy member of that squad still, I think it's a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, that was sort of what I was alluding to is going to Richo's, shake the tree, you never know what comes out. Like Toa could be maybe potentially a trade option if they believe in Taylor and May and they believe that Makasini will be the centres next year, then Toa would be the kind of guy that you might put in the shop window and find a home for, especially if he's committing somewhere else like a Perth or something like that for 2027. So we'll wait to see what happens there. I don't know, it just kind of feels, Nick, to me with Toa, just last thing on him, like it kind of, I think I can kind of imagine the team without him, if that makes sense. Like it feels to me like him, even though he had really good parts of his year, really good games this year, that he might be sort of on the way elsewhere. That's just a gut feeling that I've got.
And I actually think this is probably the first time in a while we've had a little bit of depth or other options in the outside backs too, or in the back line. So yeah, I don't want to see him go. I think he's still a quality player, at his best, but yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. There are a few spots as you've set up for grabs. So it'd be interesting to see what happens over the off season. Hopefully, Richo and Eddie are both out there shaking trees around the NRL. Some of those clubs trying to shake a few quality players into some of those key positions that we need to fill.
I will mention it is nice to actually have a possible problematic selection choice in the centres
Mm,
for once.
Yeah.
mm.
What a position. Well, I don't think we've been in that ever,
No,
but
for
maybe when
years.
Chris Lawrence was around. But even then, I think we had two at best. So,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's been a problem for quite a while.
mm.
On the West Tigers podcast forum, we ran a poll asking what the recruitment policy or priority needs to be for 2026. And just about everybody voted for prop middles. We need more impact up front. Zach, I know you listen to the West Tigers podcast and you hear me batting on about it all the time, but are you of the same opinion that that remains our Achilles heel is that impact up front?
Yeah, I most definitely for me, it's what you talk about you banging on. I bang on about something remarkably similar, but it's momentum changes. So we need people in our pack that are momentum changes. And what I mean by that is, you've got that organic momentum that you can shift. You've got inorganic where the ref might do something that will shift momentum. But when you're up against it, as all sides are at certain points, I think
Yeah.
that the better sides have one or two or even three characters within their side who one of their primary roles is to shift momentum.
Yep.
Whether it's, I think one of our prototype attempts at that this year was Royce Hunt. And I think early in the season we saw elements of it. Obviously, that disappeared. But you can do it in so many ways, whether it's someone shooting up out of the line to try to force a mistake, someone pushing out heavy at marker to try to cover AB better. Uh, Contesting on kicks, kick pressure, kick chase, all that sort of stuff. You can look across the league. I mean, Kurt Mann's doing it exceptionally at the Dogs. Liam Martin has been at Penrith doing the same thing for eons. Canberra's just got about an entire side full of them.
Yeah.
And I look around our side and look, Asemwela Fainu, I can see most definitely growing into that mould. Seafath tries to do it and ends up slipping over and getting sent off. But I think, yeah, in terms of prop, I think that impact, specifically somebody who is geared to be a momentum changer. I hate to say it because it's the low-hanging fruit, but someone in the Spencer Leniu mold that can
Mm.
do it on both sides of the ball would be a big difference to us.
Yeah. It's funny, Nick, because we last off season we were talking about Skelton and Taruva providing something different to us, and that's getting some momentum going at the start of sets. And we've kind of got that nailed, and they've brought that, and we're going bang bang off the kick, and then we kind of go blah and grind to a halt. So, are you're of the same opinion? If we got a guy or two that can just get that line going and get that momentum going in our favor and gaining us that extra 10 or 15 meters a set.
Yeah, completely agree. And your example there is just about, those sets being started by Jarrell Skelton and Taruva, taking the first couple of hit ups. Taruva's been taking probably two hit ups a set.
Yes,
Mm.
true.
Like he's doing half the work that the forward should be doing. And I know I'll go back again to that Bulldogs game, and I know the conditions are terrible because it was wet and heavy. But the forwards were having a lot of trouble, especially in that second half, getting back on side after each set, well, after the ball's returned back to us. So Taruva was doing a lot of that extra work. But I definitely agree. And, Gary said a lot during this year. Terrell May is brilliant. He can be an 80-minute player. I know he probably wants to be an 80-minute player. I know he's played probably 70 a lot, especially the back half of this year, 70 minutes. But we do need someone to complement what he does or add to what he doesn't bring. And while he's a big man and he's hard to bring down and he can punch out a lot of minutes, he doesn't have that sort of Fanua Pole type impact when he hits the line. Um, Spencer Leniu, Zach would be perfect. And I know his name's been thrown around a couple of times, even towards the start of this season, or maybe it was the end of last season. I'm not sure what's happening with him contract wise, and I have heard some rumblings that he's maybe not happy in the eastern suburbs. I mean, why would you? I wouldn't want to live in the eastern suburbs. Rubbish out Bondi Way. Much happier out, Concord, sort of Penrith area or Campbelltown area. But I'd love a player like him, sort of with some controlled aggression, like Alex Seafath has, but with physical impact on top of that. and some muscle, I think is exactly the type of player we need. So yeah, definitely need someone hard hitting in the props
We
to add
saw
on.
we saw Nick a prototype performance by Alex Twal in the Bulldogs game. And
Mm.
if you go back and watch, I said in the show in our show last week, he put about 4 or 5 giant hits on that he wasn't required to do, and he nearly kamikazed one or two blokes in the meantime as well. So I'm not suggesting that Twali is that guy, but I'm saying that type of role we saw it, and it was tremendous, and it really caught my attention because what you're alluding to there as well, he played that role. The problem for Twali now is that he showed his hand, so I know he can do it. So,
Yeah.
so when we're not seeing that impetus out of him, when we're not seeing him taking the game to the opposition, I love Twali, but he can be somebody who goes through the motions, a bit of a stat runner. Then look, goodness me, if he can find that string to his bow, maybe he's the long lost hope. I won't hold my breath, but the proof of concept is there at least.
Late bloomer. He'd be a very late
Yeah,
bloomer.
that's it.
Our longest serving player. When was the last time a team won a premiership without one of those guys? Like
Mm.
maybe we didn't have it in '05, but I can't really think of a team that hasn't got that forward leader or a couple of those guys that just go bang bang. And I think if you looked at our team and you threw in a lean you, I think we're certainties for top eight. I think if you put him in our team, that's how important I think it is to us. A little bit like Penrith. I think a lot of the reason why Penrith struggled earlier in the year is James Fisher Harris wasn't there. I mean, if there was a guy that you could buy in terms of props, he would have been ideal for the West Tigers. You put him in our team, and I think our performances would have been a lot better. So we need to find one. The trouble is that we don't seem to be growing them, and they're not too easy to come by. So because every team does, wants to hang on to their impact forwards,
Mm.
uh, but it's something maybe even the UK, Zach, might be worth looking at, or I just think it's just a vital need. Like I've got big raps on Sione Fainu. He's
Mm.
really reliable, but
Mm.
he's not your number one man. And Terrell plays the game that we all know he plays now, but we it's just so desperately needed. I just don't know. We've got to look outside the box or something to find some impact.
I think Fanua Bole is that player a lot of people are hoping will grow into that.
Mm,
And I don't think it will come as a surprise to most people that, I think many are wishing he was a little bit further down that road. But again, age, people forget that Fanua is only just 22.
yeah.
Um, uh, Sione, I think we sleep on a little bit. I think Sione is very, very quickly putting a pretty darn good resume together. That he, particularly from I like him starting, but particularly from the bench, he just has a knack for being impactful. Whether it's footwork at the line, a little hit, a little bobble, a sneaky strip that doesn't get picked up, or there's a couple of names floating around Cup. I know that Peter Tarteo, I think it is, who
Yeah.
came over from Canberra mid-season, has been doing some pretty good things in that type of mold.
Mm,
So yeah, look, there's certainly options, and it's going to be interesting the way that they go into next year. I don't know that we have the cap space to go out and hunt somebody of note on that. So Lenu, awesome pipe dream, but and I hope that Richo can pull it off. He's pulled off far crazier coups in his time, but if we can uncover one, like I guess you're alluding to there, then yeah, I think as you say, whilst not a fait accompli, goodness me, it would change the dynamic of the side in a lot of ways. And I think far too often we are the hunted, and we need a couple of hunters in the side.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's it. We've needed him for a while. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at what do we want to do first? We want to do pessimistic first or optimistic first for 2026?
I don't think we can finish in the bin. I think we should start with the pessimistic. That's
Start
my
pessimistic
opinion.
first.
I
It's
think
normally
Okay.
the
so.
easiest with this club anyway.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, well, the good thing was that on the forum, on the podcast forum, nobody left any pessimistic answers. They only left optimistic. So I can start with my three pessimistic. The first one related very much to what we're talking about now. Still look a little bit light up front. That's number one reason to be pessimistic about 2026 for the West Tigers, as far as I'm concerned. Another one is the Buller contract situation. I think that might be something that hangs over the club a little bit next year. Nick, the Buller situation is one that we're going to want to put away as quickly as possible, I think.
Agreed. Yeah, he's definitely a player that adds a hell of a lot to our team. You saw that last week when he came back from injury. Um, he's quality and he's getting better, and he will continue to get better with better quality players around him. So he's definitely gone to another level, in my opinion, this season. He's 100% a player we've got to lock down. So I get very worried when, and I know we talked about it last week or the week before when we spoke about whether it was him or not sitting in the Bulldogs camp, watching Galvin a few weeks ago. And I spoke about when the Bulldogs players all came over and shook his hand after the game last week, and they said more than a nice game to him. They all had a real big hug and they looked very friendly to him. So that makes me a bit concerned. And bloody Phil Good was on X yesterday posting, a photo, where am I? And he was clearly sitting at Leichhardt Oval, probably watching lower grades game, but and
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
nothing to do with West Tigers. But I thought that's the type of person that's going to come and poach someone like Jareem Buller.
Mm.
And he's definitely a key piece of that puzzle that we can't lose. So yeah, he needs to be retained.
Zach, I think it's not just what he brings, but just the optics of losing a young player like Buller and what that would mean for our brand. Like Galvin, a lot of people had sympathy for the club for Galvin. Like we kind of got a bit taken there, a little bit had. De Silva, still most people who aren't in the game would say that he's not a proven first grader yet. They can see that we had Appy there and you can kind of see the logic behind it. But I think losing Buller would be a really, really bad look for the club.
In a lot of ways. What I love about Jareem is he is so authentic, and he's marketable for that reason. Like
Mm.
he gets around to so many positive charitable events and movements and doesn't chase fanfare. He's quietly spoken, he's humble, and then he just has the skills and ability on top of it. So those types of players, I could eat them up all day. He's tremendous. He's classy. We've only just scratched the surface. For what it's worth, I don't think he's going anywhere. And in fact, the fact that he's Isaac Moses is managing him now makes me even more confident because Isaac Moses, above all other things, including Benji, my assumption, I don't know him personally, my assumption is that he would hate not getting a good deal for himself.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't renegotiate Dream's contract, we take up the offer at 900. Jareem gets 900, we get Jareem, and Isaac gets nothing, has to wait another 12 months. So that gives me a little bit of confidence that we might see a re-sign because he doesn't mind lining the back pockets in the right way, does dear Isaac.
Maybe Isaac Moses also feels like he needs to keep a part of his clientele within the West Tigers so he doesn't become completely alienated by the club. Because obviously, if he starts, I know there's stories is that the Roosters refuse to sign a player that's managed by Isaac Moses. I think that's something I've heard. Whether that's true or not, I'm not entirely sure, but he wouldn't want to get to a point in his career where there's a set amount of NRL clubs that don't want to entertain his players because that'll make it harder for him to to sell off those players or to give them contracts. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that might be an angle that he might have to work on to maybe that's an idea. I like that idea, Zach. Dream has to stay at West Tigers purely for Isaac Moses.
That's it.
I like it. Well, let's hope it's a situation that we can put behind us and move forward.
Mm.
Also for him at his this point in his career where he is really turning into a really good first grader, just to put it away, get it out of the way, and not having hanging over you, coming into such an important year in 2026.
Mm.
And last one for me was still at this point in August 2025, and I look at the 2026 roster, there's still some non-performers or some guys that are shredder worthy still hanging around. So it'd be nice to sort of clear out a little bit more dead wood. We've done a pretty good job so far,
Yep.
but a little bit more there would make me happy. It maybe open up a couple of more spots. It would be nice to get that Sullivan situation locked down as well and get that spot opened up. I don't see it being good for Sullivan or West Tigers, him coming back here. So they're my three reasons to be pessimistic at this stage. What do we got, guys? Nick, what do you got for us in the pessimistic stakes?
I really didn't enjoy putting any pessimistic points out there, Joel. To be honest, I really did enjoy putting the optimistic ones down, but pessimistic was a bit of a challenge. But My first one is exactly what you spoke about. I said, players like Galvin and Talon leaving or wanting out during the middle of this season is a trend that we've seen in the past. So, that's damaged us for a good 8 years since, Tedesco, Moses, and Woods left. And it's been very, very hard to recover out of that. So, again, I'm scratching, but, Galvin probably will go on to a decent NRL career, hopefully not too good. Talon, the jury's still out, but yeah, we don't want to see more young players. I'll throw out a scenario. What if Hamasi comes out middle of next year and says, "I'm not happy playing under Benji. I want to go somewhere else." Like,
Don't, Nick, don't.
no, I know, but these kids are generational players, right? And same as Tedesco. Look at what Tedesco's gone on to achieve in his NRL career. So it's just the fear of that continuing to happen. But maybe this is the point in the club's history where we do turn the tables and these guys want to stay. And that's what I'm very hopeful will happen under Benji. So
Hmm.
that was my first one.
Mm,
The second one I put down was the uncertainty around Campbelltown Stadium and what's going to
yeah.
happen going forward. And not just playing at that stadium, but our overall presence in the Southwest off the back of that, because we can't have the West Tigers not playing out of that Campbelltown region. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know Richo came out and said a while ago that if we didn't secure funds, I think it was by the end of June or I think it was June, that we weren't going to play that in 2026. I haven't heard any certainty around that rumor. I don't know if you guys have. So
I
I
think
assume that.
originally it had lapsed or come close to lapsing, and he gave him a brief extension
I think it was to the end of
around.
July.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Mm,
Okay, so hopefully that's still ticking on in the background because we definitely need to get Campbelltown upgraded as we are hopefully doing very soon at Leichhardt,
mm.
so we can cement our footprint out there and keep players or teams like the Bulldogs and Penrith away from that Southwest corridor because that is ours.
It's a strange world where an inner city, you know, seat, that whichever way you want to describe it, from an electoral position or a politics position, gets funding for an upgrade. But out in the southwest, where there's an airport and there's all
Yeah,
of this development and thousands of new homes, and it's can't get any funding. And I know politics is involved, but it's a topsy-turvy world. It should be Campbelltown that's going ahead and getting the new, $40 million or whatever it was investment that Leichhardt's getting. It's a little bit topsy-turvy and counterintuitive because you'd think it'd be out there where there's voters to win over and those sorts of things. But yeah,
And
it's just a
being a
weird.
giant growth area too,
Mm,
right?
exactly.
I think that's where investment would be going. Not that I'm complaining about the capital they're pouring into Leichhardt, because I'm pretty excited about what that's going to become.
Mm,
same,
yeah,
same.
we'll
Yep.
have to wait and see.
Uh,
But you're absolutely right, Nick. It's such a big part of West Tigers, and if we're not playing there, then we're not representing the area, and it changes the whole optics of the club.
it really does. So let's hope Campbelltown gets that money because we need to update that ASAP. And the last point I had, Joel, on my pessimistic side was whether our current squad that we have locked in so far for 2026 will be strong enough to make an improvement on where we finish over the next month or so in 2025. So, we've made great strides forward this season. I really hope, well, everyone hopes that we can build on what we've done so far and improve that again and be pushing for a finals appearance. But yeah, I just a little part of me is afraid that we're just going to tread water again and finish around the same spot. But I probably will really come down to those key positions of who we can recruit over the next, couple of months, 2, 3 months, leading into off season, and then, hopefully we're stronger going into next year.
It's an interesting point, isn't it, Zach? Because 12 months ago, we were sitting here thinking to ourselves and talking about, well, Luai's coming next year and Taruva's coming next year, and we could kind of see these building blocks that were going to take us from here to here, hopefully. But next year, not so much at this stage. It's kind of like we've kind of got the core, and
Yeah.
as Nick's saying, is there enough juice in that lemon? Can we make it? Can we blow the balloon up a little bit more with what we got?
The double-edged sword, I think. And I've been speaking about this a lot recently. And, in an odd way, I'm pleased that the squad is looking a lot more clear as to what it looks like in the medium term. But the difference or the issue that I still have, though, is that there's a lot of assumptions that I personally make. And you mentioned a couple of them before. Like I've got Taylor May in there on that wing, sorry, in that center position. But there is question marks about Taylor May. Firstly, are we going to re-sign him? I'm assuming that will be done. It has to be done. But how is he going to continue with his recovery? We all cross fingers and we hope that's okay, but we don't know. Latu, is he going to kick on to that next level enough to have an impact on 26, if at all? I'm very big on Latu. I have been since he was at Manly, so I know that there is an absolute spectacular player in there. But as an example, we don't. These are things that I know that I make assumptions about, and there's a myriad of them. How is Kai Pearce-Paul going to fit into a different system? Is that going to work on his edge? That is going to take time to develop. So the list could go on in that area. We spoke about Hamasi Makasini before. Very, very careful not to blow him up too much, but all the signs point to he's going to walk into it and be able to do it on his ear, which will be phenomenal to witness. Joseph Sua Ali'i like. But we don't know. These things aren't certain. So yeah, my first is that probably I'm making a few assumptions and leaning on the positive, and that's sort of a negative. So maybe being realistic around some of those squad holes, but they're certainly diminishing, and that's a pleasing thing.
Yeah, yeah. And look, as I'm constantly saying, you need to build off consistency. You need to build off a base, and hopefully there's a strong enough base there that you can just add in and get that extra. Because ultimately, it's a 20%, a consistent 20% increase. Let's just pull that figure out of the air of where we are to where we need to be. Because if we'd won, if Galvin grounds that ball, if one or two other results go our way, the whole conversation is different. And instead of talking about finishing on 28 points, we're talking about how do we get to 34 points next year. Like it's not a massive jump that needs to be made, which
No,
is
absolutely. I think we've lost something like 5 or 6 games by 6 points or less
yeah,
this year.
exactly.
The Warriors game, Terrell May dropped it over the line as well.
That's
So
right.
if we were 2 knock-ons away from being on the edge of the 8 right now, and that's having a season, I think many would agree, has been tumultuous. We've had a lot of squad changes. We haven't had long-term injuries, but we've had our fair share of injuries at inopportune times. And we haven't, in my opinion, particularly in attack, played very well. I've been saying for a lot of the year, this side has looked like it is in second gear and just can't quite get over that hump. And in spite of that, it's probably one of the optimistic things I should mention later, but in spite of that, we've still been winning football games. But, we didn't quite win enough to get us to that next level in that next conversation on the edge of finals, really, even if we are a mathematic chance. So it's not that far away, but like you say, there's a lot of variables between
A lot of those,
not
lot
getting
of
those games.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Zach. I was just going to say a lot of those close losses. I don't think you'd find better teams like Melbourne and the Bulldogs and the Roosters even. They wouldn't lose those games. They would find ways to win those games, and I think that will come. So the longer that this team that we have is together,
Mm.
and the more cohesive we get, I think we'll probably get a little bit better in terms of managing games. And that probably takes me back to even to signing someone like AD again for the next couple of years. He's pretty pivotal in that leadership group as well. So hopefully next year is the year that we start to win a few more of those closer games rather than losing. And like you said, Joel, there's not much difference between where we sit now on the ladder and where we could be if we iced
Mm.
a few of those moments. So we could well be sitting here talking about potentially playing finals, but it's probably not going to happen. But we're not far away.
No, you're still doing the math. Um, the other thing too is if you look at Richo's meter, average, like if we're shooting for average, and I think the definition of average is consistent. So we need to, and we've been mostly pretty consistent this year, where West Tigers the last maybe 5 or 6 years. I mean, we've been periods of consistently dreadful, but the team hasn't been consistently probably since Ivan was here. We've been sort of up and down and all over the place. So that's maybe something to build on. But we're not quite there because Zach's got some more pessimistic points or maybe shares some of ours.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, everything you mentioned so far, couldn't agree with more. Just a couple of quick ones. The second one's very, very quick. I still have coaching concerns. Systematically, defensively, I've seen big improvement, and it's decision making, but the defensive systems appear better this year. So hats off to John Morris for that. We've still had lapses and individual misses, and people will make mistakes, particularly on the 3-quarter line. Now, our 3-quarter line has been a disgrace for 15 years, but that's another
Hmm.
another side. But in attack, and I understand we've been missing Tareem for large portions. I understand that we've lost Lockie Galvin a third halfway through the season. I understand all of that. There has just been times where the attack has looked, as we all know, deplorably bad and probably beyond a level that is satisfactory. I think Brett Hodgson probably then needs to undergo a review of sorts around that, and if we can make improvements, so be it. And Benji by extension, obviously nothing happens without Benji's oversight, and it may well be some of his game plans around that too. And I think he's got a lot of work to do there as well himself. So still do have some concerns about the coaching staff. It's not that my methodology is correct by any way, shape, or means, but yeah, the questions, there is probably questions to be answered there, and Benji may turn around and answer the questions with his performances next year and blow me away. And look, I certainly am a supporter of Benji, but there's concerns there. I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't. Small, though they might be.
Yeah.
I think where Benji's at as an NRL coach is probably, you could probably say he's on his green peas. He probably sat through his learner's license a few years ago, and last year was probably, red peas and having a great time. And now he's, got a bit more responsibility. Can't quite drive the speed limit yet, but he's not far away. So hopefully next year, he hits the ground running. He's got a bit more experience under the belt, and I know he's made some better changes bench wise as well in recent weeks. So he's still learning on the job. But yeah, I know we've spoken in recent pods too. He probably needs some different people around him on the coaching staff. I'm not sure if anything will change on the coaching staff over the off season, but we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, I'll back Benji. I think he's got what it takes to be a good coach. He's definitely a good people manager.
Well, the counter to that point, Zach, is if we're talking about the value of consistency, are we better off because we talk a lot about he needs more experienced people around him, but is there some value in keeping a consistent team together that are growing together and growing their bonds and rather than bringing in an outsider that is going to blow it all up again potentially?
For me, Joel, outcome is everything. So if they show over the next month, and I've got them winning 3 of the next 4, I called 4 of 5 a couple of months ago and got called a lunatic, but fingers crossed. If they finish the next month strong, and strong doesn't have to mean 3 of 4, strong can mean strong performances,
Yeah.
even if we do have a couple of close losses. I think you're right there because they will then have another off season, another pre-season to work on deficiencies. And are we looking for a wizard or are we looking for people to build a project? I think we're looking for people to build a project, and you can't be dropping single years on people and expect them to turn around entire systems in a club that has struggled for years on end, in a squad that is rebuilding and started from extremely low base and has had a lot of chopping and changing, both between years and intra year. So there's been a lot of challenges there. I'm not necessarily. I think earlier in the year, out of frustration, I was like a lot of people arguing that we needed some sort of older head, experienced coach to come in and in the right ways challenge Benji on some perspectives.
Mm.
If the current setup can continue, I wonder if it's recency bias with the Bulldogs win, but a lot of us are feeling good off the back of that. But if they can continue to show that that is the trajectory now that they can then henceforth go to, then by all means, roll the dice again, and the proof will be in the outcome. If our systems can look that, you're talking percentage points, 5, 10, 15, whatever the arbitrary number is, better again next year, and the trajectory is going in the right direction, then absolutely. If they're winning games, it doesn't matter who's on the coaching team.
Yeah, that's it. It's funny, it kind of like just listening to you talking there, Zach, I was thinking about like West Tigers fans have been conditioned, I think, because of what happened early on in our history to, use the term wizard, but like that sugar hit, like it just happened so quickly that we've sort of believed that anything is possible now. We just need to make, this change and everything is going to change. And what that has led to is impatience and not trusting the systems and not sticking with systems. Certainly, definitely a million times over, not having the right systems, Nick.
The wizardry left when Ron Palmer took his fairy dust away.
Fairy dust, yeah.
We've always been an impatient club, mate, haven't we? And
Yeah.
the last 15 years, look up impatience in the dictionary and there's our logo there. We just have gone through coach after coach, system after system, CEO after CEO. Finally, we've landed on a good one. So stability, clarity, all those things are something that West Tigers have never, other than the Tim Sheens years, I guess, other than that period, in some ways, we've never really valued. And it appears as though Richo is placing a lot of value in putting roots down in a number of contexts of this club and how that leaches into coaching and systems and pathways and the squad itself.
Yeah.
And good.
Yeah.
Because I think as a club and a fan base, we need a bit of stability for a while. And that's why people calling for Benji's head, I think, are wide of the mark, regardless of how we went against the Dogs and how we'll finish. Because yeah, it would be like upending a tree that's about to blossom, if I could be optimistic.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, now, even worst case scenario, Benji's got the job until halfway through next year, you'd think at very least, which is there's a fair amount of stability there. So yeah, let's hope he's a great success and it all comes together and we're successful. But we're being pessimistic right now, and I think you might have another one or two, maybe.
No, my last one was just that I'm
Okay.
pessimistic because we're scarred. We're a scarred, fragile, sensitive fan base, and
Yes.
we have every right to be. So that's why I carry a certain pocket full of negativity every single year.
Yeah.
But
I thought you were going to
hopefully,
say medication.
Yeah.
oh, there's more than a pocket. There's a whole backpack full of that. But long may maybe I can start to empty these pockets and be optimistic heading into next year.
It would be nice. Okay, let's switch gear into optimistic. On the West Tigers podcast forum, Mac Tiger had 3 reasons to be optimistic about 2026 for our club. Firstly, improved roster, not just for the first grade side, but for the Magpies, which is a really, really good point. Like it's pretty sad when the New South Wales Cup team's getting lapped every week, but when they're doing well, you kind of feel like there's a little bit of hope and there's some options and you can believe and trust in the system a bit more. So that's a good point. A more experienced Benji, yeah. So as Nick said, to be onto the green peas, he's almost there. Like you, and when do you stop using the term rookie coach? Because they still do it in the commentary and in the media. They refer to him as a rookie coach, but that's going to end maybe next year. So yeah, we'll see. And hopefully, back Tigers says a confident ending to the 2025 season. We're not there yet, Mac Tiger. We've got to actually do it before we can say it's a confident ending to the year. Tiger Town SFS, Benji third year as head coach, hopefully means we've crossed over beyond learning into being a genuine coach. He has man management down pat, is a great recruiter, but he lacks game plans. Number 2, the squad is 90% capable, and another off-season with multiple teams in the league expected to be in rebuild mode gives us the chance to cherry pick the rep level quality that we need to get into a top 4 threat, but a rebuild team can't utilise. Cowboys and Titans are the key targets for these. And lastly, a strong finish this year and start next year should cascade into more positive media narrative that the likes of the Bulldogs and bizarrely the Eels are getting this year. This finally lifts pressure off the club that has held us back. And Canberra Tiger, number 1, optimistic reason, cut a lot of dead wood. Yes, we have. More to come, hopefully. Number 2, the talent floor has been raised, especially in the second row. And number 3, Appy was quiet in his first year and really broke out in his second. I reckon the same might happen with Luai. And I haven't got that on my 3 things to be optimistic about, Nick, but sometimes people need to come into a club and be here for a little while before they work it out and work out the lay of the land. And I think Luai, for this year, for the Galvin stuff, and he's come out, he said, I'm not going anywhere. I think he'll be better next year for what's happened this year.
Jerome 100% will be better. Yeah, and we've spoken about it too. Like Jerome's had several different partners in the halves over this season. He's won a 7 and a 6. He started literally just feeding the ball to Lockie because Lockie was the whiz kid, that was going to run the show, who ended up walking out the club. Then Latu, Latu is going to be the future, but he's coming off the back of hamstring problems for who knows how long, and he's been eased in. I still haven't seen a decent long game kicking game from Latu. And Zach, you said you watched a bit of Latu at Manly. Does he have a long general kicking game like in him,
It's
or?
he can kick long, and he's got a surprisingly long boot when he lets it go. But he is not a long kicker specialist. No, he's a runner of the football primarily. Can play short and wide, and he's got a decent short kicking game. But I'd probably say long kicking is probably one of his weaker points, which you could almost argue that is probably Luai's weaker kicking game too. So
Yep.
that's a problem.
Yes, Jerome's definitely got the better short kicking game in my opinion anyway, over Long. So yeah, to answer your point, Joel, I think Jerome's 100% going to be better off for this season under his belt, and with a few key positional changes next year and recruitments as well. Anyways, up,
Mm, well,
baby.
yeah, you could say that the last 3 years, but not this year. Yeah. What do you think about
Remember,
what do you think about that, Zach, for Luai to
hmm,
go to another level next year with us?
it's more so that last statement when we won our first spoon and we said the only way was up, and then we went a
Mm,
side lower because the Dolphins came in and we got worse.
mm,
Um, yeah, yeah, Luai for sure. For a number of reasons. Like Nick nailed it. Luai played caretaker the first half of the year, being selfless. And yeah, we can comment retroactively on what that was about, but I think just moving forward, there's going to be so much more. We can already see it. He's finally taken control of the side, and he's not going to be the type of player, sorry, to win games always off his own back. I
mm.
think he's going to be the type of player, and we've seen it already, that's going to bring sides together.
Yeah.
And combinations wise, we've seen our what is now our future spine. The assumption is moving forward, the likes of even just having Appy, Jerome, and Buller around, whether it's AD or Latu at the moment sliding in, they don't have reps in the tank yet. And so I think him being the linchpin of that and being captain of the side and everything that comes with that, we're just going to see collectively an entire side that's more cohesive, and he by default as one of the key players is going to be the same.
One thing you just said, Zach, about Jerome being the player that brings everyone together, and he is exactly that. In a conversation we had earlier on in the pod, we were talking about AD and how AD is a big moment player and a big game player, and how he won those two games off the back of a field goal and his penalty goal, whatever it was. Um, that's interesting, isn't it? Because AD's been a bit of a bit player. He's either on the bench or he's at lock or he's at seven or he's in the centers. We're not really sure where he fits. Jerome's come off the back of what, four premierships, and he's literally feeding the ball to Adam Dewey, to make those moments for our team. Like he's the player that's put his hand up and said, "I'm going to win this for us." And Jerome, rather than him putting his hand up and saying, "You know what, I've won four comps, let me kick the field goal or let me make that moment," he's actually probably recognized that, I'm just going to do what I need to do to get us in the right position and let someone else take those moments. So
I love it because it's pure collaboration, and he's smart enough to recognize that he has other talents in his side that he can facilitate them having their moments, which is for the betterment of the side. I'm sure at some point he'll probably feed Latu the opportunity to win a game for us,
yep.
Mm.
and I can see that he would be that type of selfless player, and that's a true leader, not thinking as though they are a one-man band. And so, yeah, I love it.
You can also see some value in over the next 4 weeks, touch wood, fingers crossed, that the spine can stay together and play as much football together over the last 4 weeks of the competition. I think that'll be really important for us for
Mm.
26 as well. So my positives. So Benji, another year of experience, another off season. I think that you just as much as you can have wizards or mentors or whatever, like just nothing beats actual experience and learning from your mistakes, and putting things into practice, seeing how they go. So I think that's a positive. I think it's going to hopefully be another step in the ladder for Benji. Our spine looks mostly settled. Madden is a good option as a backup, or he may end up playing a bigger part than that. But there are worse guys that we've had coming into play seven over the years than Jock Madden. And I've got here Macassini and Taylor, like impactful centers, but it's not just that, it's a chance of an impactful back line with Buller, Skelton, Taruva. I'm starting to like the look of that and what all of those guys can bring on their day. But also couple that with Fainu and Kai Pearce-Paul, who look to be, NRL standard second rowers. So, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit. So there's my three reasons to be optimistic for next year. We'll keep it in the same order. Nick, what have you got for us?
Almost a carbon copy of what you said, Joel. So my second point, which I'll start with, was Taylor May and Macassini and the strength that they will both add to our back line. We've seen what Taylor can already do in a very, very short period of time since he's come back. and he's been very impressive. I've only seen highlights of Makasini. I can't wait to see him play live. Really looking forward to that. Don't know whether he's going to get an opportunity this season. Wouldn't be surprised if he does, but also would understand if the club wants to maybe give him a few cup games and just let him play against men in the lower grades, and then potentially look at maybe, I would say they will 100% trial him next season and then decide whether they're going to bring him into the starting team from round one. But yeah, there's a lot of potential there. And also, you spoke about Latu. I want to see him get through the rest of this season injury free and full of confidence, and then really hit his straps after a full preseason. If he can come into round one next season fully fit and ready to go, then I can't wait to see what he brings to our team next year without any hindrances in terms of injury. So, really looking forward to that. Also, I've already spoken about the early recruitment that we've made. So, obviously, Kai Pearce-Paul coming into the back row. Again, I've only really watched him this year, and playing in a team that I don't think plays with a great deal of cohesion. So I think he'll probably, for me, he's an unknown, but from what I've seen of his skills, I think he can fit into our squad. It just depends on how quickly he picks up, I guess, Benji's ideas about what he wants to do or how he wants to fit into our system. So there's definite potential there, and we 100% need that stronger position in the back row going to next year. And then obviously the strength signings that we've made in Maverick Geyer, Ethan Roberts, Jock Madden's an interesting one. I could actually see him potentially starting next year in the halves. We'll just have to see what happens there. And also Javon Andrews, a young fella as well. So some really good strength signings, which, as you spoke about as well, Joel, hopefully the Magpies will have a better season next year, because that confidence will then run through to NRL team as well if our reserves are doing well. So,
Mm.
yeah, some big signings there as well in terms of depth. And the last one I had, um, just the obvious improvement of the NRL team this year compared to the last several seasons. Because obviously it's no fun coming last, especially when you do it three
Mm.
times in a row. So you're right, Zach. I did say the only way is up, but yeah, we've probably got ourselves in a predicament now, don't we? That potentially we might finish as high as ninth, I think. And
Oh, I long for those days, Nick.
so do I, mate. But I mean, the only way to the finals from ninth is up. So
Mm.
I guess that's where I'll run with that idea.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. I still, all of that just highlights that I hope we don't throw it away by not having that impact that we need. Like it just seems to me like, yeah, I look at this team for next year and I go, bang, 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 tick, 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 but there's still that. But
Yep.
yeah, Richo, get onto it. Zach, what do you got for us?
Yeah, agree with everything you've said. I tried to pick a couple sort of left field so I didn't double up. Lack of reps was one, and I mentioned it earlier. Our side is only just piecing itself together, and I think we've had the framework there over the course of the year. Obviously, we had an obvious detour or diversion we had to take, but then injuries sort of caught up with us a little bit. So we just simply haven't seen the core of this side play together. Taylor May's been a recent addition, and we've all agreed he is a lock in on that 3/4 line next year, provided we get the signing done.
Yeah.
So by virtue of that fact, I think that by almost default, we're going to be improved. We know that increased reps over pre-season, off-season, the more they train together, the more cohesive they're going to be, and it will simply look better on the field regardless. Now, I didn't how much better that brings about, I'm not sure, but that's a reason for me to be optimistic that we are still winning football games with combinations and people in positions and a side set up at the moment that is relatively unfamiliar with one another. They certainly don't have a year or two as a cohesive squad. So that we will get heading into next year, and that's pleasing in and of itself. For me, we've touched on it a few times as well, is the clarity around particularly the 17 or maybe even just the 13. We've spoken about the need for those high impact props if we can add in that space. We've spoken about how lock seems as though it has a short to medium term solution now. I think when we've got clarity, that is just going to provide a better foundation for the team and the squad and the coaching plans in general. But I also think something I'm really happy about is we can really start to map out clear heir apparents in those positions too. And I think we're actually starting to place them there. We talk about the the debacle around Talon de Silva leaving mid-season, Jared Hayward looks sensational.
Mm.
And he is far closer to what Talon was than people think. He's doing great stuff in Flegg. Was the best in the Flegg game against the Silktails on the weekend as well. That's hooker. We've got the likes of Phoenix Godinez, who is pushing up into higher where he should be as well in the second row, and he's a tremendous talent as well. We've got Christian Tapau Moores down there. We've got Hamasi, obviously, who is getting pretty close to a debut, whether it's this year or next. So for me, not only are we seeing clarity around the squad and the best 13 and 17 to start, we're also starting to see what that might look like into these transitional squad periods into the future, which to me is a big thing, because if we're going to future-proof this club and go through 3 wooden spoons and 15 odd years of pain, I want them to be putting systems in place that mean I don't have to, and we don't have to ever endure that ever again, please.
Mm.
So that's pleasing to me. And the last one was just the trajectory. Trajectory. I keep stumbling over that word tonight. Nick alluded to it a moment ago. Everywhere across the board, we are improving. We've
Yeah.
had more wins this year. Defense is better. Attack is better. But even the nuances of those, the systems look better. People are making individual choices better. I think there's more players this year in career best form than I've seen in a Tiger side for a long period of time. They look more cohesive culturally as a unit. So I think we're heading in the right direction, and that's a
Yeah.
pretty good reason to be optimistic.
Well, I was just going to, you sort of stole my thunder there at the end there, Zach, but I was going to be cheeky, like, because the host, it's like the one word submission. So the host always gets the opportunity to, as you know, make up new rules along the way. But I was going to add in another one, and that is the cohesion and the bond and the connection of the boys. And there's something that hasn't really been highlighted enough, and that is that we had adversity this year. We lost Galvin. We went through all those dramas. We lost all those games on the run, but the team hasn't fallen apart. Touch wood. It looks like the team is still cohesive. It looks like the team is still playing for each other, and it looks like they haven't given up. And that's something that in previous years, West Tigers, by this time of the year, you'd say they're just going through the motions, Nick.
It's a shame we had that 64-0 loss to Melbourne.
Yeah.
But saying that, that could be the only actual real flogging. Hopefully that will endure
Fingers
for the
crossed.
season. So hopefully there's no more. I don't want to put the mock on us for the next month of footy, but over the last few years we've had several of those running into the back half of the year where the effort drops and
Hmm.
heads go down and players start thinking about where they're going next year or looking for
Yeah, yeah.
early releases or thinking about where they're holidaying, and come finals time. So. Yeah, hopefully those days are over because I don't want to think about that Melbourne game again. I'm already starting to get shivers thinking about that 80 minutes we put in. But yeah, hopefully we don't see that anymore in our future. There's always one that sneaks in, but again, I'll go back to the point I made earlier. Good teams don't lose games by that margin, so hopefully those days are gone.
To
But
extent,
yeah,
sorry, Joel.
just going to say, Zach, in saying that, good teams have really bad off days too. The trick is that we don't do it 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row like what we've experienced.
And yeah, our off days, we want to be 32-16 instead of
Yeah,
64-0. So that would be nice too. Just to
exactly.
feed off that, you both had mentioned it. And in the past, for eons, we have been a club that has crumbled in adversity, sorry. But with the Galvin scenario, to your point, both of you, I think that if anything, it's almost amalgamated the side. And the telling thing to me, and I'm sorry to keep referencing the Bulldogs game because it was fantastic, and I keep enjoying reliving it in my mind, but that was the first time for me, particularly, and it was a particular note that was an emotional football game.
Mm,
And I can think of countless examples where this club, not this side, but this club has entered into an emotional football game for whatever reason, coming up against Ivan Cleary again, Robbie Farah's mum passing, the Tommy Rodonicus game, playing the Sharks at Leichhardt to get in with
yeah.
a raucous home crowd. We've crumbled on every single occasion. We don't handle emotional football matches.
Mm,
This side went into the Bulldogs match and handled it absolutely brilliantly.
yeah, yeah.
And that to me, as you're saying, is it a signal that this culture can use adversity in the right way as a motivator. And we've also seen how they've risen over adversity at numerous adversity. It's getting late for me on a Sunday night, boys. Sorry about that.
You're starting to sound a bit like Gary.
Yeah, but yeah, look, and that's been sensational as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a good point. Yeah, and it's if we're aiming for consistency, then there needs to be some degree of ability to overcome obstacles and setbacks and adversity, and not fall apart, because an average team will keep showing up, may not be winning, but will continue to put in a consistent performance. And until we get to that point, and hopefully we're there now, but I think the next 4 weeks are really important and will give us a really good idea of where we're at. The other thing too is, as you said, Nick, in the past, often guys would be going, well, I'm out of the club in a few weeks. So why am I going to put in? Whereas almost this entire team is going to be here next year. So that's a slightly different one as well. So yeah, fingers crossed for a good finish to the year. So Gary and Eddie, Rob,
And,
they were
and Steve.
and Steve, they were recording out at the mic'd up studios in Parramatta this evening. So that pod will drop maybe on Tuesday. There'll be a midweek edition of the West Tigers podcast. I don't know who will be in that lineup, but it could be me. You never know. And then next Sunday, we're going to come back with a post-game edition of the West Tigers podcast, hopefully a post-victory edition. Hope you can join us, Zach, for that one. And we'll keep an eye out for the Tiger Town pod as well. That'll drop sometime during the week, middle of the week.
Yep, we're a Wednesday morning drop normally, Joel. So, looking forward to get that one done with my co-star. And, looking forward to Tigers playing again, because we're on a high and we're all feeling optimistic.
Mind you, I do like a good bye weekend.
That's true.
How good's a bye weekend?
Exactly. Thank you, boys.
Thanks very much.
Fellas.